Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Spirit Rescue Talk. I'm your host, Amy Major, with my two wonderful co-hosts, Cynthia Maroon and Jordan Start. We're actually kicking off something new here for you today. We're actually doing a 3-part series of the Aspects of Spiritual Ascension. We thought this would be valuable information for all of you that are watching to kind of say, hey, I'm going through this too, or, what can I expect when I'm learning more about being spiritual, understanding the soul, our own consciousness evolution. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the collective, what's happening with that, what's going on around the world, what symptoms should we experience, and what should we expect from all of that. So it's going to be a very fun, very informative series that we're going to do. Again, 3-part. This is the first part we're going to be doing today. Today we're going to be talking about the biological, which is physical aspects, and sociological, social aspects that you will be experiencing, or anyone could be experiencing. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to experience all of this. These are just examples of what could happen to you out there to give you a little bit of a heads up to say, hey, this is normal, this is okay, you're safe, and to reach out if you do have any other questions as well. So we're also going to start the episode with some information that Cynthia would like to pass along to all of you. Cynthia?
Thanks, Aim. I was just thinking when we were preparing for this topic today that, I'm a big fan of always taking a grounded approach, even in spiritual matters. So we're here having this physical experience, and we're going to talk about biological impact and also about, later on down the road about the psychological impact. And, these are things that, being in a physical body, we might have certain symptoms and sensations that are coming from an energetic shift. But if you are experiencing something new and you're concerned about a physical sensation that you're having, a psychological state that you're experiencing, we're just reaffirming that this isn't a substitute for medical or psychiatric care. We really want you to take those things seriously. Talk to your own social support circles, talk to your medical providers, and eliminate those things and natural causes, eliminate illness, eliminate those things before deciding, oh, I'm just, going through a spiritual ascension and that's all it is. I've been in that situation myself where I've had energetic shifts and changes, and I too will go to a physician and I will make sure that everything is looking normal, all my labs, I will be properly assessed. And if everything is good, then I feel more comfortable at going, okay, this is, what's going on spiritually. And we just want to encourage you to do the same.
Well said, well said. Because it's, again, we never know if this is spiritual, energetic. I mean, everything's energetic, or if this is something that should be followed up with a doctor. And again, rule of thumb is always get seen first. Always make sure, rule out anything that could be biologically happening to you. And when you have ruled out all of that, start looking deeper. Is this spiritual? Is this energetic that's shifting with me? There's so many things that people experience the doctors just don't have the answer for. And it's important to know that you are getting seen, you are getting a professional take a look at it. And when they say might be something more, start looking down that rabbit hole as far as how these could be spiritually, you know, connected to you, and the different symptoms that you can experience. But before we kind of go into our opinions and our personal experience, we would like to open it up to Jordan for any information that she's found online that most people may have heard of before.
Mm-hmm. So, as you know, we like to go to ChatGPT because we know it's a way a lot of people are getting their information nowadays. It's quick, it's accessible. You type in a quick question, you get some info. So, looking at ChatGPT, as we were coming into this topic about ascension, right? So, I wanted to know what would ChatGPT define as ascension, and specifically tailoring it to our topic today. So, per ChatGPT, ascension is often described as the process of moving into a higher state of awareness, consciousness, or being. not just a spiritual concept, and can shift across multiple layers of existence, right? So the biological, the psychological, the social, and spiritual. So some traditions see it as moving closer to unity with source, while others frame it as an expansion of human potential, moving from dense, limited states to a higher, lighter, and freer ones. In regards of connecting to the biological and social, biological aspects of ascension per ChatGPT may involve nervous systems upgrade, um, due to the nervous system adjusting to handle more information and frequency. The endocrine and hormonal shifts, they talk about the pineal gland, the pituitary, and the thymus are often linked to ascension because they regulate perception, intuition, and immune function. Hormonal changes can mirror emotional or spiritual transformation. Cellular response, some report fatigue, detox symptoms, or DNA activation, cells holding more light energy. And scientifically, this is connected to stress responses, mitochondrial shifts, and even epigenetics, again, all based on ChatGPT. And then the mind-body connection. So sleep disruptions, unusual appetites, or physical purges like digestive changes are sometimes interpreted as the body recalibrating to new energetic states. And I think we'll probably talk about some of these things today. In regard to the social aspects, shifting relationships, right? So as people change their values or their consciousness, they may outgrow certain friendships or family dynamics while attracting new communities aligned with their path more. Collective awareness. So social systems, whether this be educational, healthcare, politics, may often feel too small for someone who's experiencing an ascension, and that can lead to activism, alternative living, or forming new cultural movements. Communication changes, so there's often a move towards more authentic and heart-centered dialogues, away from more superficial or fear-based exchanges. And the role in society. So many people feeling called to become teachers, healers, creators, change makers. That's a part of that ascensive journey, including that collective evolution. So in short, biologically, ascension feels more like the body trying to house higher frequency of consciousness. And socially, this ascension reshapes how one relates to others in society, often creating ripples of change in communities and systems.
So I know I have a lot to say about biological changes. You know, I've spoken a lot through the years about the more open you are, the more you are in that state of ascension, the more you're changing your frequency, the physical changes that come from that can be pretty extreme. Because again, we are fourth dimensional beings existing in a third dimensional body. And when we shift ourselves into a higher state of consciousness, which is technically nothing more than just elevating our consciousness back to whom we really are, further away from third dimension, in fourth dimension, even as peeking into fifth dimension, since our souls have ascended on the other side, we're now raising our vibrational frequency. We feel we're receiving more from the light, but what we're actually doing is moving closer to the light, where the blending of the two are stronger. So we're actually feeling we're actually taking it in. We're receiving downloads, as people say. They're not necessarily coming down, but we're rather going up to receive them. So when we are changing our vibrational frequency, the physical body is going to respond. And so I think we can discuss a little bit about our own personal symptoms that we've experienced. You know, I'm always talking about how I have a lot of digestive issues, autoimmune issues as well. There's a lot of neurological issues that I've experienced throughout my life as well, as much as brain fog. And again, I do a lot of psychic readings. And when I'm in that frequency, I have a very hard time connecting with my left brain. I was very right brain oriented when I'm doing a lot of channeling and psychic work. So when someone asks me a question, I literally can't think of the answer because I can't access that part of the brain that would normally hold that information. So there's many times like I know the answer, I just can't give it to you right now because my other part of my brain is overactive. And I'm focusing on that right now. So I know a lot of people that get more involved in spiritual reading and psychic reading and just reading energy in general. You're like, why do I have this brain fog? Why do I feel like I can't think clearly? Why do I have all these weird symptoms? It's because we're using different parts of the body and different parts of the mind, because psychic is mind, that it's overcompensating. And just, you have to ground yourself back in the third dimension, almost bring your density down to align more into the physical world where your body can regulate itself again, closer to the 3D. But it's always been a little scary, because I'm like, okay, am I losing my mind? Am I not being able to have, I don't have short-term memory anymore. Forget long-term memory. I'm like, it's not going to be there. It takes days for some of this memory to show back up with me. And there's so many people like, oh, you remember when you said this? And I'm like, nope. I don't remember a thing, because my mind can't bring its energy back to third dimension. And what I mean is, you have a soul mind and then you have a brain mind. They are different. And you have a heart mind as well. So when the soul mind is working and channeling information from the spirit world, the brain mind may not actually be receiving the information. You may perceive it in a concept, but you're not actually receiving it through your brain mind. So a lot of people aren't going to remember anything. And that's one of my physical symptoms of doing spiritual work, is huge brain fog. And I know that's neurological as well. Cynthia, have you had any physical symptoms that have kind of like stood out above the rest?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to piggyback on what you're saying about the mind, because I was thinking about when I used to do counseling. This is before I even I was always spiritual, but I didn't have the education that I have today. I'll just put it that way. So, and back then, I always felt I was just really intuitive, or I really loved my job and I was really passionate. I'd be in counseling sessions with clients, and I always called it being in the flow. I was just in the flow of passion, but really I was probably channeling it to some degree, or
Mhm.
picking up on information from their team, my client's team, and myself. And it was common that I'd be sitting there in the flow speaking, and then I'd be finished, and then they would go, "What did you say when you said this?" And I'll be like, "What did I say?" And I don't remember what I just said.
Mhm.
Oh,
And then they'd be like, I need to record these. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
absolutely.
me too, apparently, because I just couldn't remember. Now that didn't happen every session, but frequently I would just be unable to remember something I just said. Even running a group, and I would be in the flow of a message that I'd be presenting as a perspective to the group, and then someone would bring it up and I'd be like, what did I say? Oh, and then it would take time for it to
Mhm.
come back. So I really relate to what you're saying in that regard. And it is a bit, now at this point in the journey where I've had more frequent experiences in connecting with spirit, it's like it does leave me, and I've said this to Jordan multiple times, around the way my mind is changing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm feeling more scattered than I've ever felt before. And, when we're talking about the biological aspects of ascension and how it does change the functioning, it's really not a surprise. This has been talked about with really famous channeling mediums. How they will go on certain episodes of TV shows and they'll have like a brain cap that measures their brain function. And they find that they're operating in brain waves that typically would only operate if you were in sleep, rest, or deep meditation. But here, this person is awake, talking as if they should be in a different type of brainwave. So
Mhm.
you can verify these changes through science, and I think that is really interesting. In addition to those kind of things, I've had a lot of nervous system things, electrical. Physical electrical experiences, feeling I don't know another word other than zapped at times, or a lot of tingling, spiritual goosebumps kind of stuff, and not all over. A lot of times when we experience goosebumps, it's just kind of like a shiver for cold, like it's the whole body. But with spirit, sometimes it's just certain parts, which is a
Mm-hmm.
different experience.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Sleep changes as well. Dream time. It's not unusual for dream time to maybe be a bit different. I myself have like a dream journal, so that I can capture if I wake up from something, and so that I can process it later. I heard the term vibrational flu, which I really liked, feeling. I know there are times we talked about ego deaths in a previous podcast, and so this kind of ties into ascension, right? There's like a weaving of those things. And, when you're clearing, it's not unusual if you're ascending to go through bouts of feeling very fatigued and
Mm-hmm.
needing extra sleep, and the dietary changes as well. I think for you, I've heard you over the years, and it's been a lot. So, you've been ascending continuously for a long period of time. For me, it's been subtle changes. Like I just don't want certain things anymore. I'm grossed out by certain foods. I'm really drawn to other foods. And I find myself sliding into this like intuitive style of eating and returning back to things that are mostly come in their natural state, as opposed to being like super high processed and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was a
Yeah.
lot said right there, and probably most symptoms and experiences that
Mm-hmm.
people here have watched and going, oh my gosh, this is spiritual. Is there something wrong with me? I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with you.
No.
We're still trying to figure out how to adjust our bodies to our ascension. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Jordan, what kind of symptoms have you kind of experienced through this?
I feel like I'm an eclectic mix between the two of you, really. Definitely a lot of shifts in regards of food sensitivities, things that I had no problem eating before. Suddenly my body does not agree with all of a sudden. Um, Definitely those periods of fatigue. And it's funny because my team will come in and they say, hey, we're going to be doing some upgrades on you. And funny enough, it usually happens on days where all my clients will cancel. So I can work from home, which is great. Or I'll feel really much in a daze or in a fog all day. So it would be really hard for me to be able to step into that counseling role at times. And I find that spirit clears away my schedule when those periods happen, which I'm very grateful for. Lots of heat waves. I'll have periods where, and I know we talked about this a little bit, I believe, when we were talking with the ego, but in a previous episode as well, where I would have moments where my team would come in and say, hey, we're going to be doing some recalibrations on you. And they would give me the forewarning. And I remember one time I was in the shower and they're like, hey, you're going to pass out. And I'm like, can you give me 5 minutes? I've got shampoo in my hair. Like, let me get to my space. And they're like, no, you're going to fall asleep for the night. And I'm like, well, hold on. I'm like, I need 10 minutes now because I got to brush my teeth. Like, I got things to do. And they were like, we're going to do it in 2 minutes. And I'm like, I'm in the shower. Like, I'm like, so lo and behold, they're like, make it quick. So I'm like, okay, perfect. My team is very firm. Okay, I'm just gonna put that out to the world. So I'm like, okay. So I go, I brush my teeth, I get all my things. I got in my bed for maybe 30 seconds, and they're like, your body's gonna start shaking. My body starts going through full convulsions. They're like, you're gonna pass out. I passed out. I woke up. Then I said, I didn't have time to set an alarm, but Spirit woke me up. They did not make me late for work, thank goodness. But like, and I would have moments like that, or I would have moments where they'd be like, by the way, you're going to go sit down. So I'd go sit down. The next second later, I'd have this purge of emotion come up and I would just be bawling my eyes out, shaking. And then 2 seconds later, like I'd be fine as if nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to continue on with my life. This is my life now. Pain in the body I would get during some of those moments. Sensitivity to light and sound I would get a lot of, or just being in specific spaces would just make my nervous system become really overwhelmed. And I've been thinking a lot recently about how for some of us who are, we're coming in with soul contracts, or soul said, hey, I'm going to do this journey. I'm going to do this path. I've been kind of looking at just shared experiences with folks. So one thing that's kind of come up is trauma stuff. And that's not to say that trauma doesn't have an impact on the nervous system. It absolutely does. Science has shown that trauma significantly shifts how the brain and the body function. But I was looking at my own, and I've been very open about my own trauma journey, but then also like the spiritual journey. And I can kind of see how, looking for the rainbows here in the rainstorm, how certain experiences that naturally put my body into the state, my mind into a state, almost kind of like primed me for doing some of this work, because I was so used to dissociating all the time. That brain fog, I know how to function in that, which is lovely. That state of, again, feeling, because I do a lot of protection work, feeling like I have to be a little bit hyper aware and reading the energy and reading the states around me, really helpful in the work that I do. So, and that's not to say, if you've been through an experience and you need the support, absolutely. I went through my own healing journey. I've sought professional support. I've done the things, as we kind of talked about, like get the physical stuff, address that. Absolutely. But I just find it very interesting that a lot of the symptoms someone may experience, I'm ADHD, I'll own that too. There's a lot of experiences that being a neurodivergent person, and also who going through the experiences that I have been through and how those things naturally shape the brain and the body and how it functions, is very much in tune and alignment with the spiritual journey. And it's really interesting because I've met people who have said, hey, since I've opened up into my abilities, I do have a hard time focusing, or I'm on one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And I'm like, this is how I feel in my natural state all the time. So I'm like, chicken or egg? Was it the ADHD? Was it the spirituality? I don't know. But it's just things to kind of look at, right? Because there are shifts that happen. Again, those body shakes, the heat waves, the tingling, the insomnia. Insomnia has been rough over these past few years, but then I'll conk out for a few days. So the body changes. My ADHD is really coming in full force.
I think you just said it right there. The body changes, and it really does quite a bit. I love what you were saying about that, about how the body's constantly shifting. And I love that your guides kind of prepare you before something wild and crazy happens. And I think part of some of the symptoms we need to discuss all come and originate from the Kundalini awakening that happens to so many people when they're going through their spiritual journey, is the awakening of the chakra system, which is always there, but sometimes they're closed, they're blocked, they're not moving as freely, they're not working as a system. So when you do go through the spiritual or psychic awakening, they start opening, they start moving, they start working more efficiently, which can then cause physical, psychological, emotional symptoms that people start going, where's this coming from? Why am I experiencing this? And the reason that happens is because all the chakras connect to vital parts of the biological system. We have 7 main chakras, and they connect to many different parts of your physical body. They connect to your emotional body, your mental body, your past life, which we call karmic body, and then they connect to your spiritual body. So all of these chakras are working in one unit. And if one is blocked, then you're going to feel physical symptoms. And if the chakra is deciding it wants to do some releasement because you have had an epiphany of sorts in your spiritual awakening, that chakra will then start releasing woundings or belief systems or biases or old patterns that it used to hold. And you're going to experience physical symptoms from that releasement as well. So I think there will be certain times in your spiritual journey you'll have more symptoms than others, all in relation to the chakra that might be overstimulated or understimulated or going through its own awakening within you. I think we also need to talk a little bit about the downloads, as we were talking about before, saying we think we're being downloaded with information because we feel the shift happening, and our minds are wired to believe that we're grounded in the 3D. as we're ascending more into the fifth dimensional frequency, we're all starting to receive new information that's awakening to more. We're like starting to go, well, maybe it's not this, maybe it's something else. Our awareness, our consciousness is shifting, and we're now being able to see it in a different way. Maybe it's not coming down, but maybe we're going up. Because it's the same thing. We're merging energies together. And it doesn't matter whether it comes down or whether you go up, it just is. But we call them downloads right now because we feel we're receiving information from higher states of consciousness, whether it's cosmic, angelic, spiritual, from stargates, wherever this is, we're receiving this information that is putting new forms of consciousness. At least we think they're new forms of consciousness. But what it is it's keys. It's activations of awakening what your soul already knows. So when you feel you're getting downloads of this information, you're actually receiving keys, symbols, frequencies that activate and awaken memory within the soul to remind it of what it already knows, saying, okay, you're ready to remember a little bit more. We're going to clear a little bit more of that amnesia, and you're going to wake up more to some of this information. They have to do it slowly so we don't go nutso and think, oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm losing my mind. We can do that anyway, but they're like, don't worry, you'll be fine. You can handle this.
And I find going through those moments where they're unlocking some of those keys, I'll never forget this. I remember one time I was going through one of those moments. I was really struggling with it. I was passing it. I was sleeping all the time. And my team kind of came in and they said, think of it this way. When you're shifting your frequency and you're shifting your consciousness so much, they said, think about it like this. It's almost like your computer system and you have advanced software on more basic hardware. So there's a little bit of a misalignment. They're like, so all these purgings kind of bring you more, so that way your operating system can work with, whatever software you're using. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a nice grounded way of they did the best they could do to kind of explain it down to me. But it made sense because I'm like, my body would struggle whenever I would do some of those bigger shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just thinking about that as you were chatting about, the opening and the keys. The body does get impacted by that significantly.
Mm-hmm. But you know what, Jordan, that makes a lot of sense because we were talking also about how spiritual ascension, physical symptoms involve dietary changes. So it's like, okay, if you are willing to change your diet and do this, then we can maybe upgrade that hardware so that the software works a little bit better.
Well, and because it's funny that you mentioned that, because I've been thinking a lot about the frequency of food and like what we do input into our body and how you can shift the frequency of it, whether that be through prayer or again, going to more natural sources. I know my team's been really harping on me a little bit about going more natural, but also looking at more of a holistic view and getting those nutrients that the body really needs so that I'm not filling with other things that my body doesn't need in order to be not just sustainable, but to really be at its healthiest state. And so what you just said there, Cynthia, reminded me of that. Because I find people get drawn to like different things. I was never a big exerciser. My goodness, I've been getting pinged on doing a lot more exercise recently, but not just like being like spirit nudging, but me genuinely having an interest in doing it. And I kind of told them, I was like, well, I told my team, I was like, look, I've been resisting this journey for a while. So if you need to like do some things to like get me more in alignment, please do. It's been working. It's been great.
Ask and you shall receive. But talking about the food, the reason I've been told by my team, the reason why we do adjust the food intake is because our vibrational frequency should match the food that we're taking in. As we start ascending to higher states, we're like energy attracts like energy. If you don't want to go for the dense food, you want to go for food that carries a lighter vibration, because your body will probably reject anything of a denser vibration through illness, gastro issues, headache. You'll get a lot of bad symptoms when you're eating food that doesn't align to your frequency. So you're going to feel more compelled to like, okay, I want high vibrational food, which is what people consider clean eating or live food. in our food supply. As we are ascending, as we talk a little bit more about the collective is waking up, or we're ascending as a collective consciousness as well. So we're all now starting to look at the food. Notice how all of this started shifting within like a 5-year period, where people started saying, wait, what are we eating? Wait, what ingredients are you putting in my food? The awakening started with an initiation of people thinking about it, and the rest of the collective picked up on it, where they may have been blind to it before. I know in the 1980s, when I was a kid, everything had so many chemicals in it. I mean, you used to eat things that glow in the dark. I mean, you're lucky that we're still alive with the stuff that we put in our body. You know, that was the fun thing. Like, look, it glows in the dark, Mom, you know, type of thing, or it doesn't melt. We're like, this is bad stuff that we're putting in our body. But we didn't
So true.
back then. We didn't. We're like, oh, well, they're selling it. It must be healthy, must be okay. But as we're ascending, we're now starting to question things. We're like, wait, this doesn't feel right anymore. And it is more than just a feeling. It's now an awareness that has come over the whole collective to say, we want better from society. We need better. We need healthy. We need strong. We need vitality. We don't want to be lied to anymore. So I think the world is torn right now because half the world's ascending and waking up, but the other half still wants to stay in that denseness of, we just like the way things are right now. So you have that polarity, which happens in third dimension, you know, the left and the right, the good, the bad, the light, the dark. We live in a world of polarity. So we're going to have that where some people just want things to stay the way they are. They want their cheeseburgers with French fries and a Diet Coke. And that's just the way it is, because who doesn't like that stuff? But the rest of the world is ascending into thinking, I want to put something better in my body. I want to be more aware of how my body is responding to this. I want more supplements. I want more vitality. I want more nutrients. I want cleaner air. I want cleaner water. We're starting to look at this, and we're going after the companies or the organizations that we feel are not doing the right thing. So you're going to see waves of advocacy of people saying, stop this, do that. We're going to see a lot of it more, because it does affect the physical body. The air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you consume, the electricity that's in the air, the electromagnetics that we're absorbing, the technology that we're holding. I think we still have another step to go. I think there's another ascension, another awakening yet to happen. 26, 27, we might see that step in for us, where we're going to be awakened even more to things that we didn't know were harming us before. So all we can do is be patient, talk with each other. Communication is key. Express our feelings and be able to connect with each other so we can feel safe. So, which brings us into social engagements.
I just want to say one thing before we move on to social. If you're sitting here, because I know, you know, the world's gotten very expensive, and, you know, I hear a lot of people struggling financially in regards to dietary changes and feeling unwell and all that kind of stuff. Jordan mentioned something about, you know, impacting the food and drinks that you have through prayer. And there was, and I was just, it's just the name is escaping me, but if you search in Google, messages in water, I believe the name of the scientist or the researcher was Umoto. And there was a whole study done on the impact of prayer on water, and they would freeze it and examine the crystalline structure of it. And so if you look that up and you can get the buy-in to this, you can create a practice where, regardless of what you can afford, you can set intention over what you're consumed to ask for it to be increased to the highest frequency that it can before you put it in your body. And I just want people to use that if they feel inclined to do so, that there are creative ways to try and increase the frequency of the foods that they and drinks that they consume.
Great suggestion.
Yeah.
You can do it, you're with yourself. I know my teacher used to teach me, put your hands around the food that you're about to
Yeah.
consume and set intention and project energy. Give it a color if you want to give it a color, give it a frequency, and project energy into your food, asking that nothing of the but the highest and best to stay with you, and anything that isn't good for you to just pass right through and not affect you in any way. And so
Beautiful.
she's been doing that for years. So frequency and vibrational stimulation of your food, I think, absolutely is a wonderful tool to use.
Yeah. Lovely.
But going into the collective again with Socio, talking about how we're all connecting differently to each other. I think before, we had so much isolation. I mean, this is before the internet, which I existed before the internet. So to say how old I am, there was times before we connected with each other online. So everything was based on, what we read in the paper. I think it would be mostly town or city. It might go all the way to state, but it mainly, stayed around your local area. You would sometimes see in the paper things going on in the world, but they'd have to be pretty big issues for the paper to discuss it. So I think our nervous system for thousands of years was wired to handle information of a smaller village type mentality. And now that the internet has bridged the gap there a little bit, where we're able to connect more with each other, we're able to see a broad range of issues going on in the world. I think that's affected us more neurologically than we anticipated. What do you think about that, Cynthia?
I very much agree with that line of thinking, and I feel that it's actually, there's a polarity to it. It's beneficial because there's more transparency and people
Mhm.
can independently search out certain truths for themselves instead of it being vetted by only a small group of people that's giving you the information. Um, you can connect with loved ones all over the world. And, like just over video conferencing and stuff like that. But I also think that there's the opposite to that, where it can be really harmful and very overstimulating to the nervous system, in how much you are saturating yourself in information, especially that is negative, that's happening around the world. And some people who have really big hearts and really good intentions feel very powerless to make the change they wish they could. And they can often get really discouraged because they think, what kind of dent am I going to make in this mess, of all this suffering globally? And so it's, a double-edged sword. And,
Yeah.
you have to take responsibility for your own wellness, and know that it's okay that if you have a desire to make great change, but just start at what's within your control and what's in your lane and the methods that you feel drawn to, whether that be types of healings or readings or service or whatever it is, and connect with groups socially, and then get a team of people together that might be able to have a greater impact in another place of the world, for example. But I definitely think, because I remember because I too existed before the internet. And I remember that, when I have much younger siblings, there's a great age gap between me and some of my siblings. I have a big family. And I remember, being an adult, and some of my siblings were in grade school, and the internet was really, going on. And I remember, one of my little brothers coming home from school completely in distress over what he was able to see happening in other parts of the world, and just absorbing that reality that that's happening when everybody's going on about their daily life here. He was having a really hard time reconciling that truth. And so I just saw the impact of the accessibility of knowledge and what's happening through the internet. And
Yeah.
I think it could be very traumatizing for some people and affect the nervous system. And, you know, you really have to be mindful and be your own gatekeeper when it comes to that stuff. And
Yeah,
it's hard, especially if you have a heart of service. It's hard.
it is. But just like anything else, over consuming or overusing or overdoing can put hardship on the body and nervous system. I mean, we may be experiencing certain symptoms, ADHD, maybe they are neurological based on too much consumption of the internet. We don't know. There's many different symptoms that I think have only been experienced over the last 40 years since we started getting wired online. So I think these are things that scientists should take a better look at, which they probably are, to kind of see how we're rewiring our brains through this technology. And I think that's why spirituality is so vital, so important, because that takes us away from the technology back to more of the natural state of our humanity, our brains, our collective consciousness, even our own personal consciousness, to get us back to a place of balance, which is, I think, is important. What do you think, Jordan?
When I was thinking about how, again, that overconsumption of knowledge, but also not for nothing, also that overconsumption of knowledge, you can't escape it sometimes, the bad news of the world,
Yeah.
and how overstimulated that can be for the nervous system that's looking for safety and security when you're surrounded by hearing all these horror stories of how instability or how unstable the world is. It can be very overwhelming and arguably very traumatizing for the body and the nervous system, I would imagine. And so something that I used to do for myself, because I was one of those kids and I was born with the internet, but my parents kept me away from it from a very long time. So it was very interesting. There's an age gap between me and my younger sister, and where I got to see her live in the world where she never had it without, versus me where I remember playing on the streets and you didn't know when to come in when people would call out. Like, I got that experience and I got to kind of be in that transition stage. And I remember feeling similar to what you were saying with your brother, Cynthia, how overwhelming it was, where before it was like my little community, and now I was having access to all this information from the world, and being one of those very sensitive kids that was very much wanting to, you know, make peace in the world. It was very overwhelming. And so something that I naturally started doing, and I can't remember where I heard this quote that kind of re-solidified it for me, but somewhere in my life I heard a statement of, whenever you're in a world where you feel like there's fires burning, look for the firefighters, look for the healers, look for the people that, no matter how tragic it is, look for the people that are showing up to do something beautiful in that horrific space, to bring peace, whether it be love, to bring healing, safety, whatever it may be. Because regardless of the tragedy, there will always be those people that will go in to try to do something good, whether they be physically in the space or at a distance. And so I found that to be a little bit more helpful, of being able to kind of look at things in a little bit more balance and to see that light in the dark almost. No pun intended, but to do that I found was really helpful in helping to regulate the nervous system a little bit, because it's true, regardless of the tragedy, there are people that will show up to try to do some good and to try to bring something productive and positive in that space.
It's true. Ultimately, people just want to feel safe.
Yeah.
And they want other people to be safe. And if they do look for the heroes that are stepping up to do that job, then they feel like safety is coming. And I think that helps calm the nervous system down a little bit, because we're in the fight or flight. We're in that panic mode of what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? But then when you see help is standing by, coming in to really be of service, that can be calmed down quite a bit. And they can go more to the mind of, okay, let's get progress now. What can we do? How can we solve this problem, rather than being in a state of panic and crisis?
And something I always found so beautiful is even being able to see people who are not personally affected by a tragedy, but would come together out of just solidarity and out of compassion for whoever was the people that were negatively impacted, right? So people who don't have any skin in the game at all, out of their own genuine desire to help, would show up. And I'm like, that's just so beautiful to be able to kind of see the polarity of that. So I found that to be very helpful for folks too.
And
I
that's
just
where I
want
see
to
the soul shines. Definitely. Sorry about that.
No, that's sorry. I just want to tie together the like social aspect of ascension with kind of what we're talking about,
Mm,
because I know we're talking about the internet, we're talking about things happening in the accessibility of knowledge and stuff, but it does impact community, and
Mhm.
community is social. It can impact your relationships with family regarding a division in opinion about what's happening all over the world. And why aren't you angry about this? You know, sometimes when you go through the process of ascension, I know for myself specifically, um, it completely changed my view on human suffering and the purpose of human suffering, and the and why it's important not to rescue other people from their suffering if they're able to do it for themselves. And there's a lot of spiritual lens perspectives that developed over time in ascension that gave me a different outlook towards what's happening around me. And some people might misinterpret that for not caring because I'm not getting all, angry and ready for the fight. And
Mhm.
it's not that. It's just a different lens, and that impacts where I see my lane to be.
Yeah.
And so socially, it can end up feeling, I know for myself, quite lonely, because I was having so many experiences spiritually, mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, that other people, the majority of the people around me were not going through. And I know that there are people around me that love me, that are caring, that are supportive, but it's way over their head what I'm going through, except for my small community within the Spirit Rescue Circle here with Amy and Jordan that have been life-saving. It's been absolutely essential in my mental health to have people who can tell me their story and I hear my own in it, you know? And so socially, it can be very lonely. You can change relationships, and it doesn't mean that you're ending relationships, but the way that you connect with friends, the way you connect with family, what you choose to talk about, what you choose to share. And sometimes there are parts of your life you're choosing not to bring to the table with certain people. And it's not because you're saying, oh, they wouldn't understand, whatever, but just sometimes, depending on what your contracts are or what you're dealing with, like, not to throw Jordan under the bus here, but she's got a pretty heavy contract. And there are some things that she's learning or she's talking about that's not even responsible to introduce to others and bring that into their awareness if it could lead to, potential spiritual stressors energetically in their environment or something. The other thing is, you might find socially, I know for myself, that you get very focused on your purpose and in terms of who you're surrounding yourself with and aligning yourself with in terms of relationships. Does that support my purpose? And then you start giving priority to certain relationships because they're part of the wind under your wings, and that's helping carry you to where you need to go for your own path. So I'm just trying to bring in a little bit of that social aspect, and just to, if anybody is listening and they're like, I feel so alone, like, email us, make comments, tell us what you're going through if you feel comfortable, so that it's transparent for others. Because even by you making one comment, someone might read it and say, and it might give them the courage to share theirs. And then all of a sudden people are doing it, and then you're not alone. And then you're like, wow, there is a community out there for me. Right. And I know
right.
that's been a passion of yours, Aim. I don't know if you want to piggyback on that or speak
No, I
about
think
your
you
social
said
impact.
that was well said. I mean, community is essentially very important, because what I think it does mostly is it gives someone a permission slip to say that they can be who they need to be.
Yeah.
Because when they see other people doing the same thing, they now feel like, I'm not singled out. I'm not so alone. Most people hide. They become the hermit when they feel they're alone, or no one else is like them. So they don't actually act in their highest passion when they're doing what they want to do, because they're afraid of being judged. But when they see other people doing it, that's giving them the permission to step into their true identity, their true self, their true power. They still kind of tiptoe into it, waiting to see, is this still safe? Is this not safe? They're kind of doing that dance of, I'm going to say a few things, especially people that are new. They'll sit there and they'll join communities and they won't say a lot because they just kind of want to hear. They're evaluating whether this is a safe place. And so I just want to remind a lot of communities, when you have a lot of new people join, don't press them. Don't pressure them. Don't try to get them to be involved so quickly. They're just trying to make sure you're okay, and that this is a safe place for them to be able to communicate their thoughts and their feelings and to not be judged. And as they start to come out of their shell a little bit more, which will take time, they'll start being able to join in more on social and community efforts and different conversations that people have. And the second thing to consider is not to be judgmental of people's opinions that differ from yours. Communities are meant to come together not to just join forces because of similar belief systems, but also to collaborate with each other, to learn from each other, and to experience and understand things from other people's perspectives, which may be different from your own. So a lot of these communities come together to be able to share their wisdom, their experience that you may not have gone through, to give you the valuable information you may need for one day if you do decide to believe it, or one day you do decide to be able to take that on. It gives you a different perspective, because I always say God put billions of people on this planet all doing very different things to learn from each other. We're not all supposed to be cookie cutter doing the same thing. We're not. We're all supposed to be different aspects of God through different forms of awareness, different identities, to be able to experience life in different forms, in different ways. So when you're building communities, try not to shut anyone out that has a different opinion, because they're just looking for self-expression, and they're saying, what do you feel about this? They're looking for a sounding board. They're looking for somebody to be a reflection on, because they're still trying to evaluate whether it's real or not, or whether it's true, or whether they could trust themselves. So try not to push back and say, that's not how I do it, or that's not what I've been told. Be able to hold space for each other and recognize we're all going to see things or experience things or know things at different times in our lives. And whatever that person's going through at that moment is exactly right for them at that moment. And just hold space for them at that time.
And
So,
I just want to quickly add to that is that, and perspectives can shift and change over time, right? There were certain things that I would get drawn to in the beginning, and there were certain things that I would get repelled to from the beginning of my journey. And then as my journey developed, things that I before was like, oh no, that's not for me, I suddenly started getting drawn to, because it wasn't at the timing for me yet at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Or it could have unlocked something. I like to think of like Cynthia's story of her reading Amy's book where it unlocked things, and now suddenly Cynthia's saying attachments. Obviously, Cynthia was ready for it at that point. But sometimes you might feel a rejection from, or like you might feel drawn back from something, and it just might not either be in the right time, or maybe that's just not on your journey in this lifetime. Right? There's multiple truths. That's what I always like to say.
Yep.
And multiple ways of doing things. 1,000,001 ways.
now, I know before we started the show, we had discussed having me channel some information from the spirit side. I do have a guide, or a new teacher. I'm going to say that now. I have a new teacher that I have never channeled before that decided to step in and say that she would like to give information and ask any questions that may come up from Jordan or Cynthia. And I will do my best. Again, I've never channeled her before. She did give me that her name was Anne, and that she does feel a little bit like, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how she presented herself to me. Now, granted, I'm from California. I'm not from New York, but she showed me a New York busy street downtown in the 1950s, a schoolyard, and she's dressed as a school teacher Did I get that right? Got that right. And she's actually said 1940s, 1950s. And she's kind of teaching all these little kids. And they all have all these little questions of why. And that's what she loved. She loved being able to answer questions about anything. And she was telling me the kids have some of the best questions because they're not afraid to ask certain things, where most adults are like, I can't ask that. What would somebody think if I were to ask that? Kids have more blind faith. They have more abilities to be able to step out of their ego and just say, I'm just curious and I want to know why. They haven't been they haven't received the excuse or the experience to say that there is a bad question or someone's going to think that you're dumb or stupid for asking that question. Hopefully not. But she's like, we were so active with so many questions. So she wanted to come in and channel through me. So I'm going to acclimate to that a little bit. It takes a few minutes for me to receive her. I may close my eyes. I may not. We'll just see how it goes. Oh, she just said I could keep them open. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And if Cynthia and Jordan, if you want to talk a little bit about what you're hoping to receive from her as she blends more with me, she'll be able to hear you as well. See, I'm already out of body. So,
Bye. Jordan, I know that you put together some questions. So, obviously I want us to make time for those questions. I tend to be curious, a curious creature.
Yep.
So as I might piggyback.
She loves that. She loves that
Yeah.
about it.
Thank you. And, maybe piggyback off of your questions and
Yeah, some of them we've already kind of, I think, talked about a little bit, but I'm curious of what the higher vantage point has to say
Yes,
about these
too.
very 3D experiences that we do have. And really just, what their perspective is on, I guess, how we can support and care for ourselves and for one another during some of these transition phases, because it's rough out there sometimes going through this journey. Unless you have, as we've talked about, that community and how important that can be. It's life changing.
Oof. Whenever I channel spirit, not higher consciousness spirit, but just spirit in general, there's always this rush of joy and love that steps into my central unit, what I call my central unit. When I house spirit, she's tingling. I'm like, ugh. When I house spirit, I feel them internally in the center of my being. And then I sort of step back. And as I breathe her in, there's always a rush of joy and love and gratefulness from them as they step in with us. She said she does want to talk a little bit about the food because she was listening to us and agreeing. Put that down. I gotta be. She's talking that there's still going to be a lot of change involved in this. She's like, you're about a third of the way in of the reconstruction. She call it reconstruction of the food supply. But then she's taking me all the way down to the soil and saying the soil needs to be completely like there are more nutrients, that we are stripping the soil of many places on the planet that we may have overused. And so I think she's showing me movement or change of some of these crops, new growth, new soil being used. She's also saying they're going to work a little bit with trying to use different chemicals and different bonding. They're showing me bonding that's going to be binding to the soil. They're showing me down to the particles of the soil to add in more nutrients to the soil, more oxygen and hydrogen to the soil. But she's saying this won't be good. So there'll be many crops that actually end up failing over the course of the next 10 years because they're going to be experimenting with this. So she's like, give it time, give it time. They're working on it. They're also working on new seeds, I don't know what this is. They're showing me the hull of a seed as well. And they're working on bioengineering of new crops as well, new plants, new harvesting. And there's going to be a 10-year period where this does not do well, kind of like when GMOs were introduced in the 90s. There will be a change of harvesting with this new bioengineered seed. They're just showing me a seed. Sorry, she's getting stronger. And the hull itself is being bioengineered, so it's going to be less erosive. It will actually be able to sprout much easier, less affected by the chemicals being used for the growth process. So almost like an outer shell that's more protective of the inner seed. That's what they're showing me. Again, she's giving it to me according to my awareness. She said on top, that's another 10-year. For some reason, she keeps saying they're always coming in 10-year cycles because that's how long it takes to get the Food and Drug Administration, just in our country and other countries, to agree to this new process. And then there's the process of using it, evaluating it, and seeing the after effects of it. And it's a 10-year process, they're saying. So they're saying be aware that there may become a time when people are starting to grow their own food in their yards, in apartment buildings, on the top of buildings. They're saying go inward, go and find ways to make your own food for this 10-year process. And she's showing me from 26 to 36, that 10-year process. Even though we're taking more chemicals out of the food, that's not the problem. I said that was a problem, but not the biggest problem. The biggest problem starts at the germination. They're saying germination. I don't know what that is. The process of actually being planted, growing, and the chemical reaction from there. She's like, food isn't anything close to the way it used to be hundreds of years ago, and our bodies have not been able to adjust in the new she's calling it formula of processing. And our bodies will react even more harshly in the next 10 years because of that. And then all these other new neurological and cancers will, neurological disorders and cancers will start emerging from this, no one knowing exactly where it's coming from. So she kind of wants to give a little bit of heads up about that. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what can we do? Go local. Plant yourself and use soil that's already established. She just said hoard the soil. So remember, I'm just the messenger. Do you guys have a question about that?
I just quickly looked up what germination is, given that you said it. So it's the process by which a seed begins to grow and develop into a new plant.
Oh, thank
The
you.
awakening of the seed when the conditions are right. So there's a whole process for it. So
Thank you.
I did have a question in terms of, but she kind of answered it. It was just about, there is a lot of concern about the changing of our foods and our lack of control individually, people feeling a lack of control and wanting to have things in their natural state. And what can we do? But you kind of hit all the boxes that our bodies are having a hard time catching up. And, there are negative impacts to that, but there are things that you can do in the interim. Hoard the soil, right? Go inward. I love that. So I'm going to leave that. And I have a different question that I had, and this is about the physical impact of ascension. I'm curious to know from their perspective, does the body prefer the frequency that comes with ascension, or does the body prefer or feel like it's losing itself because the physical vessel is so 3D?
Neither, she said.
Oh, of course.
The physical body is only perceived as being 3D.
Oh.
Okay. The physical body is a manifestation of fourth dimensional consciousness. So it is technically a third and fourth dimensional entity with its own form of limited consciousness. And she's saying that the physical body must be talked to, must be acknowledged, just like your soul must be acknowledged. We keep thinking the soul moves on, but there are aspects of the physical body that does move on with you in energy form, which then recycles back into the collective consciousness of spirit on the other side. We're actually harnessing energy from fourth dimension that is not soul based, using it as in a formula into downgrade to what's the best word for that? I know she said she can't give it to me in my limited form of awareness, but it's like it's downloading into the third dimension and creating what we perceive as a third dimensional body. But it is pure consciousness of light source, of God source. So she says it in its natural state, it's pure energy. And it can be formed in any way according to the consciousness of the soul and the consciousness of the collective on the other side. The reason why our physical bodies are changing is because the collective consciousness in the astral plane has ascended. So our physical bodies are going to change because of that collective consciousness. Because we have collective here, we have collective there. It's all the same thing. It's all a different level of density. She is saying the physical body sometimes needs time to catch up, not because it cannot, based on third dimension, but because of your limited form of awareness and belief of your physical body. You still believe it is just nature, when nature is the collective as well, the God source. All is one, one is all, and it is all part of the belief system of the individual form of consciousness. Your consciousness is telling the body what to do.
So based on her answer, it would be helpful then if you're going through physical symptoms of ascension to respond to the body with compassion and understanding to assist it and give it confidence to go the rest of the way with you.
Yes. She said, hype it up.
Love this.
She's like, talk to it like it's a child that needs a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Because it is still a smaller form of consciousness, like a childlike self. And it can get its feelings hurt quite often based on your thoughts and your feelings about your body. And just like any child can hold on to trauma and wounding, your physical body can as well.
Love that. Really believe in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So she said that was a very good question.
Thanks. Yeah.
She did want to talk a little bit about the water too.
Okay.
Because you had talked a little bit about how they were doing experiments, and she was like really paying attention to that. And she's like, who do you think channeled that information to him? We have a whole team on the other side. She's even showing me that the water is about to change, that the water is starting to take on more plasma. I don't know what this is. And that people are going to start incorporating more plasma into the water so it can actually I'm seeing little plasma balls of water or something. The water looks thicker. It's holding more nutrients, more consciousness, more it feels like the best way to say it is more energy from the ocean. That's the way it kind of makes me feel. More energy. That's what they're saying. It's the bonding of the nutrients are connecting more in this plasma blend of water, and we're ingesting this and our body's acclimating to it more. It's using it more efficiently in some way. And then she's showing me light particles going into the water because the sun is changing. The sun is moving into its, they're calling it third rotation of evolution. I don't know what that is. Third rotation of evolution. The sun is actually shifting its rotation, and different plasma or different rays of energy are going to be downloading into our water supply, feeding us more. Like our bodies can rejuvenate more. We've actually been the end of a second cycle depleted of this energy from the sun because it's like the tail end of it, so it doesn't hold as much power. But they say as the rotation of the sun comes into the third cycle, it's like a rush of energy from the solar energy of the sun, downloading or coming, these particles coming into the water and we're being rejuvenated. Something that would have happened about 25,000 years ago. So,
Wow.
Wow.
I had no idea what any of this means, but hopefully this makes sense. Jordan, you were shaking, you were nodding. Were you getting any information or confirmation on your side?
Well, recently I had to I did a clearing, and when I was getting rid of some of the smudging pieces, or I always offer it back to the earth. And when I went to return it back, I always asked the elementals there, "Are you okay with taking this?" And they said no. And my team came in and they said, "We want you to bring it to a large body of water." So I took it to the largest lake that I have closest to me. And before I went in, my team said, "You need to talk to the consciousness of water." And so I started talking with the conscious of water, and they actually showed me this process. So I'm like, oh, that's what this was, because I didn't quite understand why they were giving me this information at the time. And then I went about and did what I needed to do. But
what did they show you?
They just kept showing me the sun rays coming down, and like I kept seeing like water, and then I kept seeing like a plasma substance and little balls coming together. So what she just explained through you is what the consciousness of water had indicated to me. And I was like, why am I doing this? I never have to talk to the consciousness of water when I do. But I guess to maybe confirm.
She just said that crystals on your planet from over 25 to 30,000 years ago hold the energy of the old water. That actually was able to be charged with a form of consciousness, which is where Atlantis used those crystals to form like computers or AI with these crystal particles. That was with the old water that was able to be, I don't know, programmed more. And she said, you're about to go through this shift over the next year or two of the sun charging the water more with these particles, and there'll be a rejuvenation of consciousness. We may even see some new life forms coming from the water as well.
Wow.
We're going through a massive change right now.
Is there anything else that she wants to say in regards to the physical stuff? And I'll stop there. No? Okay.
No.
I'm just curious, you heard our discussion about the social impact of ascension and some of what we had gone through. I'm wondering if there's any perspectives she wants to offer.
She wants to remind everyone that social engagements are all a matter of perception.
Yeah.
And that every human consciousness has a perception. And she said, think of it like a kaleidoscope. You're looking through a certain scope of perception at any time that goes through different frames of realities. And every time the frame changes, you have a different level of perception. Your vibrational frequency changes along with that perception. So your groups will constantly be changing according to the shift of perception, and you're all going to be in alignment, creating a formation of, they're saying like connecting the dots. That's what they're saying. They're saying you have no idea the importance of the union of these forms of consciousness, because just like, and she's showing me, how you used to connect the dots to form an actual picture of, but you didn't know what the picture was until you got to one of the last numbers.
Yeah.
They're
Great
saying
analogy.
the formation of these forms of consciousness create a bigger picture that is not able to be seen until you are all together connected with this energy. So she's saying as the kaleidoscope changes, the formation and the picture changes. So don't be held. So don't bond yourself to a certain picture. Allow yourself to flow along with the kaleidoscope of change as well.
Easier said than done for some.
It is easier said than done. She said, and then you have the emotional aspect of the connection with each other. She said that is so messy.
Ain't that the truth?
The human consciousness has yet to be able to master the emotional body, the emotions of self. And we work so much in relationship of reaction, not response. And then if we were less reactive to each other and actually thought carefully with compassion and again, taking us out of judgment biases, that we'll be able to actually effectively communicate with each other so that we'd be more productive rather than constructive, like being very, uh, she's saying destructive of each other. That's the word. Anything more about that? Oh, she's like, oh, I have loads to say, but not enough time.
Well, I think what she has shared is very wise,
Yes.
very true. And I'm really appreciative of that she stepped forward. I thought her analogy about connecting the dots was an excellent example. And for everybody listening, you know, focusing on being more fluid, taking more responsibility for your reactions. You know, I know sometimes our reactions are very tethered to our belief system, so we can be very passionate about our stance, but it's still just your stance. And, you know, we take responsibility for ours without spilling our pain onto other people would be a great start to having more productive conversations with one another.
Yes.
I love the fact that she used a lot of childhood analogies in there.
Yes.
Kaleidoscope, you know, when we used to do the connecting of that and the food and the water and everything was very almost childlike in a way. Well, how would a child understand this? So I really liked the way she did that.
I love the way she taught. Yeah.
I can see why
She said she'll be back.
why she came in. Yeah.
She'll be back for more in the next, maybe the next episode. She's tingling me. So I think I like her energy. I like school teachers. Obviously, I am a teacher, so this works for me for sure. And she feels so safe and so comforting, and it's a great match. Of course,
Nice.
Spirit knows best as well. I think we had a great discussion. I mean, of course, there's so much more that we can discuss, but I think we scratched the surface. I think we're able to help illuminate many different things people can experience, and just recognizing that they're not alone, as we always say in every episode, that there is community there for them. And again, if you have any questions at all about anything that we've talked about, or say, hey, I've experienced this, is this part of the ascension process? Please ask us. Don't feel bad or guilty or scared to send us an email and ask us questions, or even post down below on YouTube or on Facebook where we post this. Ask questions, because maybe your questions might be used for the channel to come through, and it could be about anything, even about something that we're not discussing. Say, I've always wanted to know about this. Ask us the question, and your answer might just get answered by someone that we channel in. And how can they reach us, Cynthia?
Our email is spiritrescuetalk@gmail.com.
And they connect with us there. They can connect with us in many different places. Please try to stay to the email so we don't have messages scattered everywhere, because we certainly don't want to miss any of your messages, because things do fall through the cracks when we don't always go through the right protocol. Again, it was great seeing all of you. Reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.